Thompson.
Thank you very much. I'll give you just a little bit of my bio. I have been a disruptor since I was a child. In a family of 8 kids, I was one of the more disruptive. And that is a really great background for me to speak about creativity today, because almost all creatives are disruptors. I ran away from home as soon as I graduated from high school and said, you know, college is not for me. I really was out of the box and wanted to stay out of the box. So the first thing that happened is I got pregnant, and then I had a child, and then I kind of searched around and found myself through a series of saying no. And my first teacher said this to me, which was such a great quote. She said, "You may not know what your yeses are, but you always know what your nos are. And so if you say no to your no's, you will find yourself in a yes." And that's exactly how I found myself in the film business. And I spent over 20 really great years in the film industry, which is a highly creative industry, and loved every minute of it until I didn't, and then I hated it. And so then I was struggling, like, what do I do? Because I didn't have an education to do anything else, and nobody was going to pay me the kind of money I was making in the film industry. So I had this serious depression one day, and I was, at that time, training to do the work that I do today. So I was still training, but I wasn't really in a position to make a living doing it. And my ancestors whispered in my ear and said, "Why don't you sell everything and move to Mexico?" And I was like, what a great idea. So I sold everything, paid off all my bills, got in my car, drove to Mexico, and spent 5 years living in a little hut. Worked on the first draft of my book, which I have here for sale. And just really sort of healed my heart, healed myself, and asked myself, if it's not about making a living, what is life about? What is life about? What do I want from life? What would make me happy? And it really did take me 5 years to find an answer to that, and to come to the realization that, you know, life was about living. Life was about adventure and taking risks and taking chances and doing things that are different, and that when you are stuck financially in a place where you cannot escape, your creativity will wither and dry up. So I came back to the United States, started Emotional Technologies, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And I have become extremely happy with a small life. I love my small life. Spend most of my time in the garden in the summer, go to Mexico in the winters to paint and to hang out with people. And I don't really ask very much of life. I simply show up and enjoy what I've created for myself and the smallness of my life. So that's me in a nutshell. And today brings us to the idea of creativity. So this is going to be very much audience participation today. Ella's got the microphone, so if you are called upon, then wait until you get the microphone so that we can make sure it gets recorded for people. So my first question is, what is creativity? I actually had to look it up because I know what it is in my body, but to explain it to another person, I was like, I really don't know what the words are. So who here has an idea or an explanation or can throw something out about what they think creativity is? Anybody? No, see? We're all kind of like, well, we know what it is, but yes. Microphone.
Free expression.
Free expression. Okay. That's good, yep. Free expression, that's good. We got somebody right here.
Ability to think outside of constructs, so you can make a series of different choices.
Got it. Thinking outside of the box. That's an excellent description of creativity. We got a couple more people here. And then there's someone to your left too, if you...
I just heard a definition of it not that long ago. It was like a way to express your world to the rest of the world.
A way to express your world to the rest of the world.
Who you are and what...
Interesting.
Your view of the world.
That's an interesting way to say that. Any more? All right. Well, I did a lot of reading about this, to what is creativity, and how it's traditionally or academically, because it seems like academia has to, you know, label everything and make sure it has a box. So creativity is defined as the tendency to generate or recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and others. It's kind of a dry and boring description of creativity, in my opinion, and we'll get further into that. But here's something that just kind of took me back when I read it. Research suggests that creativity has been declining over recent centuries, a trend which shows no sign of abating. So that kind of woke me up. Some of the other things, being creative means experimenting, being curious, imagining, exploring, and questioning everything around you. So right there we can see why creativity has been declining, right? Because one of the things that you're taught as a child is not to question. I'm the mom, you do what I say. Right? That right there is such a harm to creativity when somebody says something like that. You do what I say and don't question it. It requires nonlinear thinking, something that we're not trained in. Creativity invokes both the artistic and the analytical. In a culture that doesn't really value artistry or artistic, expression, analytical will win over and over and over, and hence the decline of creativity, because that is just one side of you working. Creativity is participatory and interactive. It builds confidence, and it can connect reflection with action. So creativity needs you to be self-aware. Within groups, creativity allows each member to feel ownership in solutions and helps us to see how the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Why is creativity declining? I had to ask that question because I wanted to do the research, but I also felt it was important for us to really have that in our consciousness. Why is creativity declining? And of course, the first thing that came out of my brain was standardized testing. Standardized testing is convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is one single correct answer. Divergent thinking involves multiple ideas or solutions, and it's original and imaginative. So you know how when you go into a meeting, and if you work for a corporation and they call a brainstorming session, and what they want is they want divergent thinking. They want everybody to throw everything on the table, no matter how crazy it is, right? But when you've spent your whole life being punished for divergent thinking and rewarded for convergent thinking, it is very hard to get out of that mindset and just suddenly tap into your creativity. Creativity is a muscle. You have to use it. You have to keep working at being creative in order to continue to be creative. Okay, why is creativity declining? Memorization. Rewarding staying in the box versus going outside of the box. Following the rules. Rules are the box. When you follow the rules, you're rewarded. When you go outside of the box or you don't follow the rules, generally you're disciplined. So can you see how as a young child, your creativity can be absolutely smashed? Okay, then this blew my mind. There was a couple of PhDs who came up with this creativity test, and they administered it to 1,600 children in 1968. Now, this is 1968, long time ago. It started with kids 3 to 5, then they retested them at age 10, and again at age 15, okay? At age 5, 98% of the subjects scored at a genius level. At age 5, 98% of children were at a genius level of creativity. In other words, their creativity and originality in coming up with a new way of addressing a problem was extremely high. At age 10, the number decreases dramatically to 30%. So we just went from 98% to 30.
Wow.
At age 15, only 12% of the children tested at a genius level. And then here's the saddest part. They did a similar test to 280,000 adults with an average age of 31. The results were abysmal. 2%
Wow.
hit genius level. 2% of 30-something. So by the time you're in your 30s, you've lost your creativity. Isn't that sad? Let's weep a tear for our creativity. Here's the biggest reason, in my opinion, that creativity is declining. Creative people upset the status quo. They are disruptors. Creativity is about making change. When something doesn't work and the same old solutions are not solving the problem, you have to become creative and think of something new, which means things will change. Human beings resist change. We don't like it. We feel comfortable when we can count on things, right? But we've become overly comfortable to the point where change now makes us, some people have complete anxiety attacks when the slightest thing changes in their schedule. So we're moving further and further away from being creative and more into being convergent. By its nature, creativity, by its nature, even when it's directed to improving things, creativity tends to be disruptive or subversive. And creative people embody complexity. They show tendencies of thought and action that are segregated in others. They balance intense energy with quiet rest, playfulness with discipline, fantasy with reality, and passion for their work with objectivity. What does that sound like? Does that sound like somebody who's walking a polarization with a foot on either side, right? And if you've seen me talk before, you've heard me speak about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is that ability. It's that ability to hold yourself in two conflicting realities and stay centered and grounded and be able to take in information from both of those sides and make sense of it. So we straddle polarity when we're creative. And the idea that you have to work hard and then rest hard, or work hard and then play hard, has been slowly gaining some traction in our culture, but it's still not rewarded. In fact, this idea was first presented when, like maybe the 80s, the psychology started talking about the fact that, you got to work hard, you got to play hard, you got to work hard, you got to rest hard. There's got to be a balance, right? But what I've been seeing in the last decade is quite the opposite of that. It's that let's hire fewer people and make the people we have do all the work, right? So there's not a change. Where do you get time to work hard and then rest hard? It seems to me everybody I know that's in a corporate job is working more now than they were a decade ago, and working harder and burning out faster, because the creativity is essential for your soul. It's essential for your well-being. It's essential for your mental health. It's essential for your physical health. How can you be creative if all of your energy has gone to following the rules and doing what you're told and checking off the boxes, right? Here's what has to be done today. I have to make this presentation. I have to do this. I have to write that. I have to follow up with that. You can be creative within that sphere. I've seen many, many people become very creative within their little boxes, but ultimately that will drain you. If there's not true creativity where you're actually being asked to come in and say, let's solve this problem together. What do you got? Throw it at me. If instead you're being given somebody else's solution and told to do it, you can only be so creative within that, right? You can only be so creative with somebody else's solution. And there's no buy-in. If you haven't had any input into a solution, where's the buy-in? And then here was the other sentence that really sort of slapped me upside the head. Extraordinarily creative individuals are more likely to exhibit psychopathology than our non-creative people. And isn't that another, if you think about, I was driving over here today, I was thinking, who are the most creative people I have been exposed to? People in the film industry, obviously, because I spent a lot of my adult life there. Addicts. Addicts are incredibly creative because they have to hide their addiction. and still fulfill it. So they are some of the most creative people on the planet. Poor people are really creative because they have to be by necessity. I remember going to visit my mom in Phoenix the first time, and she was, had a job and had a house and everything, but really lived on the edge of what she was able to survive on. And she was so creative. She was like, where's the duct tape? Where's the sticks? And she would just put stuff together and make it work. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. She didn't have the money to have it fixed by a professional, so she did it by herself in a way that allowed her to continue to use whatever it was that was broken. And so I just laughed at her because I was like, there she is. That's my mom. Okay. So we talked about divergent thinking, and we talked about convergent thinking and the difference between the two, and how if convergent thinking is what the society says to you is the be-all, end-all, that's the gold ring, why would you be a divergent thinker? What's the payoff to be a disruptor, or to be creative, or to come up with ideas that nobody wants to listen to? How many people here have ever had a great idea to solve a problem and nobody would listen to you? Has that ever happened to anybody? Sure. Probably has happened to all of us many, many times. And after 2 or 3 times like that, we stop putting that forth, right? We just never mind, they're not interested, they're not going to do anything different. We are, however, now on the brink of an evolutionary collapse. We're looking at the 6th great extinction, and the human race may well be part of that. On my good days, I think we're going to make it, and on my bad days, I'm like, we deserve to go. We brought it on ourselves with our arrogance and our convergent thinking. So we have to get more creative. Here's an example. 20 years ago, I started working with nature intelligences. There's a woman in Virginia who has a piece of property called Paralandra, and she began actually working with the intelligence of nature as a scientist, right? So she documented, she wrote everything down, she started teaching, and she started making workbooks available, and so I started doing her work, and I started working with nature intelligences. And so for me, when we're talking about environmental problems, my first go-to is let's get the nature intelligences in here. Their whole thing is balance. They will know how to fix this, and yet nobody wants to hear it. They think I'm crazy. It's not, and it doesn't stop me. I keep going. I keep talking about it in my garden groups. I'm constantly pushing that idea because it's we are not going to solve the problems that we created because we don't know how. And what we do know is in the hubris of humanity, we think we have the answers because we don't see nature as a living system. Living systems have their own ideas about what would be healthy for them. And it's time that we stepped forward and asked them to be our partner. We need to partner with them and defer to their expertise in this area, right? So that's an example of thinking outside of the box. That's really going to become important in the next decade, or 5 years, even if we make it past that. And yet, we're still so trapped in our convergent thinking that we don't go outside of the box. Or the other thing is that when I hear people bemoaning the place that we are today, and it seems like all this squeezing of freedom, right? All of this taking your rights away and forcing you to be something that you don't want to be, and all that kind of stuff. And I say, what about evolution? What about our spiritual side? What about the Great Awakening? What about all the prophecies that the indigenous people have been talking about for hundreds of years about what this time is about? Why aren't we taking that into consideration when we talk about solutions? And it's because, and I think this is the most important part of why we let our creativity decline. We have a disbelief that anyone who's not an expert can solve a problem. We have been told, and I've never seen it more obvious than the last 2 years. I have never seen it more obvious than the last 2 years that if you are a critical thinker and you do your own research, you are not a scientist, so your opinion has absolutely no value. Right? So that's where we are. We're at this place where we've really given up our creativity to think outside of the box because it's been hammered into us since we were young that there's no value to it. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is the only thing that will save us. That is the only thing that will get us out of this mess, is that we have to start thinking so far outside of the box that people look at us like we're out of our minds. And I want to be out of my mind. My mind doesn't have any answers. Right? What's our mind doing? Our mind is like, balancing our checkbook or, making a list or what needs to happen around the yard before the snow flies, that kind of thing. But your creativity, which is your imagination is so critical. And we have to be able to imagine far beyond anything that we could even believe is possible. We have to start to embrace that. I'm really lucky. From the time I was a little kid, I was fascinated by mystery. My dad used to subscribe to Fate magazine. Does anybody remember Fate magazine from the 50s? It was this little, like a Reader's Digest size, right? And it came once a month, and it was like all these, the Loch Ness Monster and UFOs and all these kind of mysteries that people were trying to explain or, show that they were frauds or whatever. It was a very interesting little magazine. I would steal that as soon as it came in the mail and get under my covers with a flashlight, and I'd stay up all night and just read that thing from cover to cover because I was just fascinated. And then I started reading science fiction as soon as I could start reading by myself. And I was weaned on science fiction books. And so my mind has always been able to see outside of the box, because one of the things about good science fiction is that people who know how to do world building can take a lot of the problems that we are experiencing here and they can put them into storylines and show you how they got resolved. And some of the things I learned just from reading science fiction have helped me very much in my own life. I became a really good problem solver because I would think about a story and think, well, that's how they did that. Why couldn't I do that? And even if it was a little outside of the box or it wasn't really something that I would share with people out loud, I would do it anyway. So find some ways to kind of kickstart your creativity. So I'm going to stop here and just ask if anybody has any questions, any comments. Yes, Ella?
So can you say a little bit more about how we connect with the nature
intelligences?
Nature intelligences,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely, sure. First of all, if you would like to look up her site, it's paralandra.limited, Ltd, paralandra.ltd. She started out doing muscle testing. So she basically just went to the edge of her land and said, I want to learn what they're doing in Findhorn. Findhorn, Scotland. Have you heard of Findhorn, Scotland? They started working with the nature intelligences, but Michelle took it to the whole next level. And so a deva is a nature intelligence. Every single life form on this planet has a deva. The deva is responsible. It's like the president of that life form, right? It's the president of that life form. And then Pan, the energy of Pan, not the Greek god Pan, but the energy of Pan. Pan is like the CEO of all things in 3D. So Pan and the devas are the nature intelligences. The devas hold the blueprint of perfection for every single life form on this planet, including ours. We all have a deva. There's a deva for the human species. And it holds your perfect blueprint. So when that blueprint blueprint gets disrupted by going to the nature intelligences and asking to partner to make change. They will help you find balance. So whenever I'm in a session with a client, I always have the nature intelligences there as my partner. Whenever I'm doing healing work on myself, I always have the nature intelligences there as my partner, because they know balance and I often don't. Balance has never been my thing. I'm more of the manic depressive cycle, although I don't even like, I like to call it the highs and the lows. I'm more of the giant wave myself. So balance is sometimes foreign to me and often boring to me. So I have to watch myself that I don't move out of balance just because I'm bored and start looking. The way that you communicate with them is many people just do it telepathically. Lots of people who garden are already in a relationship with their nature intelligences. They just don't know it. So here's an example for me. How do people feel about Japanese beetles? How do you feel about Japanese beetles? Love them, hate them? Don't like them? All right.
Don't know.
When I started joining gardening groups, I was appalled at the language people used to talk about Japanese beetles. It was the most hateful, vitriolic, warlike language. I was stunned. So I suggested that, maybe you want to work with the intelligence of the Japanese beetles. Oh my God, you would have thought I had asked people to cut off their hands. The reactions were astounding. So here's what I did. I knew they were going to be in my yard. I knew they were eating my flowers. The first year, they were eating my flowers. So I said to my daughter, let's give them a place in the yard they can live. So we have a couple of ponds, and we got this beautiful moon arch, it's called. And we put the moon arch over the pond, and there's a grapevine that grows up and over the moon arch. It is the most beautiful spot in the whole garden, and we gave that to the Japanese beetles. And I said, this will be your house. The agreement is you can eat the grapevine as much as you want of it, but you can't touch the rest of the plants. This has been my 4th summer, and I have the most beautiful garden in the neighborhood and no Japanese beetle damage. And when they show up in July, we always go out and we're like, hello, welcome back. And I go out every morning with my coffee. I tell them how beautiful they are, because they are extraordinarily beautiful creatures. That shimmery copper shell they have is just, I couldn't even paint it, it's so beautiful. And they make the most beautiful lace work on those leaves. So to just go out and look at their handiwork and their beauty. And of course, they love just flying over the pond. It's going down and having a drink and coming back out and hanging on there, And I tell that story in my garden groups all the time, and people go crazy. I had one woman accuse me of, those are invasive species and you're just giving them more space to hurt your neighbors. That kind of conversation, right? And I was like, I can't have a conversation with you if you're going to take that attitude. Life never says no to life. Mother Earth never says no to life. And since when did having a perfect lawn or a perfect garden become nature's priority? Never. So don't impose your desires on nature and expect nature to do what you want. That's why we're in the place we're in. That's why we're in this problem. Every time I cross the Mississippi River, I bless it. Thank you, beautiful water. And I visualize the ability to drink out of the Mississippi River. So every single time I go across the river, I make a conscious choice to send healing energy and to visualize that water is clean enough to drink. These are creative ways of solving problems that people don't even think about or give any value to. Because, how can crossing a river and, saying thank you do anything? Well, maybe in your reality it doesn't work that way, but your reality is not my reality. And our reality is not Earth's reality. She has her own reality. We're just hitchhikers on it right now, and we're not very good roommates. We're not good tenants. Yes, did you have a question? Get you the microphone.
Two questions. The
Sure.
first one is, I also tend to have these kinds of waves. How do you experience creativity in the highs and the lows? Do you find it in both? And is one of those more problematic? And then the second one, if I can be so, thank you for allowing it, is that the human mind, it seems for the first 6 or 7 years, is really open. And then it's like the nature of the mind is to go more and more into like a memorized way of creating life as more like a program to keep us safe and surviving. So does our own human brain work against us in terms of maintaining our creativity? And are there ways that we can kind of get out of our own box that our own mind is creating?
Wow, excellent questions. Thank you. I'm going to address the second one first, and then I'll go to the first question. I do not believe our mind tends to close down. I think it's a result of everything that we've been taught. As you can see by the 5-year-olds who have a 98% creative genius level, right? What happens between 5 and after, right, is that they're in school. At 5 years old, they're in school, and so already follow the rules, and you get rewarded. You know, convergent thinking. You know, there's one answer, memorize it, regurgitate it on a test, all that kind of stuff. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of being in indigenous cultures, and their children are not like that. Their children are creative until are creative all the way through, because that's not what their expectation is. Their expectation is creativity. And so that's what the tribe is. And the tribe itself, the whole tribe is responsible for the whole tribe. So the whole tribe's responsible for how they eat. And the whole tribe is responsible for their health. And the whole tribe is responsible for raising the children. And the whole tribe is responsible for all the other tribe members, right? So I think if we were living in a culture that really was more basically grounded in what it means to be human, these things would not be issues and they wouldn't be problems. And as soon as I answer your next question, then we're going to go to how can we be more creative? Because I was like, we got to end with that. Okay. The other thing about the highs and the lows, I'm extremely creative in my highs. Creativity in my lows, not going to happen. What I have learned though, so one of the things about creativity that they suggest is journaling. I've been journaling since I was 16, and that is the one thing that I do in my lows that is consistent, and it is the thing that moves me back along. I don't fight my lows anymore because I understand that if I fight my lows, I'm not going to get to my highs, and I love these. So it's not that I don't like these, I prefer not to be here, but I know when I get there, it's like, all right, I can write my way through here, and I can also rest. That's my body's way of saying, disconnect from everything and go within. Shut off the screens, cancel everything on your calendar, and be in that low. And let yourself be rejuvenated, let yourself be restored, and let yourself be reflective. Those lows are designed for you to have a conversation with yourself. Those lows are designed for you to start asking your questions. Why am I feeling this way? What triggered me into this low? There's always a trigger for me. And sometimes I'm not even aware when it happens, but when I sit down and start reflecting, I go, oh, because I can feel this little niggling something, right? And I can't quite put my finger on it because I'm distracted. But I can feel it here, and I'll walk around like this, and then I can feel the depression start to come in, and I'm like, okay, why are you, what just happened in the last 24 hours? And maybe it was a comment somebody made, maybe it was just something that I saw that impacted me emotionally and I didn't realize it at the time. But whatever it is, if I can track it down and then I write about it, why did that hit you the way that it did? And then as I start to write, because I've been journaling for so long, this is how it works for me. my subconscious just blows the doors open and it's like blah, 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 and all of a sudden, 15 years ago, this thing happened and I never had any resolution with it, and that felt just like it. Oh, maybe I need to have resolution with this so that this doesn't keep happening. Does that make sense? All right. So that is one of the things that they say about how to become more creative. Let's find that sheet. What good is creativity? That was a great question. Right now, it's the only thing I think that's going to help us come through this particular period. And I think that the opportunity for the human species to be creative right now is unprecedented in our history. I think we have an opportunity right now to partner with the evolution, the sixth great extinction. What's the thing about extinction? Every extinction event that's happened, life comes back immediately, not 500 years later or a billion years later. Immediately after an extinction event, life comes back more diverse, more vibrant, more creative, and more intelligent. We have an opportunity to go through this extinction event as a conscious partner in it and come out the other side more creative, more alive, more divergent, more diverse, more intelligent, if we let go of everything that we believe is true and just start looking for the craziest stuff. Okay, so how can we become more creative? It's a muscle. Just like any muscle, if you don't go to the gym, you're not going to have a six-pack abs, right? Although I do see that they spray paint them on. And first time I saw that in a film, I was just like, oh, no. You look like you have a six-pack, but we know you don't. So the only way to get more creative is to be regularly creative. Writing every day is a great way to do it, or not every day, but I don't write every day, but I write when I have questions, or when I'm not sure what's happening, or when I'm feeling unsettled. That's when I write, because that's a reflection exercise that takes me to my subconscious where the answers are all waiting for me, if I just come in the door. You can, if you like to draw, you can carry a sketch pad with you, and just when you're waiting for the bus, or you're waiting for your meal, or you're waiting for something, you can just sketch really quickly. Build stuff with scrap materials. I'd like to live in a tiny house. Okay, well, I don't have the money to buy a tiny house right now, but I do have all these popsicle sticks and this toilet paper and this, and then I could make myself a tiny house just to see what it would look like. Like, what would I need in a tiny house? How would I live? What kind of things would I need to have storage for, right? And I can tell you this, if you spent the time and the energy to build a tiny house out of found objects in your house, that tiny house is now manifested already on the three-dimensional plane. It will come to you. If you keep putting attention on it, it will come to you. That is the magnetic draw of emotion. The more often that you use your creative muscles, the stronger they will get. Here is an example. They took a room full of kids, put out all these art supplies, and then they asked them to play with the materials, not to make art, to feel the textures, to arrange them, to rearrange them. They were encouraged to take emotion-laden memories and explore ideas about making art from their emotional memories. Like, what's a really great thing that you can remember happening? How would that look as a piece of art? What's a really sad thing that happened to you? How would that look as a piece of art, right? So in a way, it's like stepping outside of your safe, I'm writing on a computer, instead of that, you're scribbling on a big piece of cardboard with a piece of chalk. Take yourself out of your comfort zone and what you normally do and find some new arenas to play with creativity. If you're a crafter, you're already doing it. If you're somebody who putzes around the house and I have a fabulous workshop in my garage because I like to build stuff. I built a cabin back when I was still in the film industry, and it took a long time. Yes, it takes a long time to do that stuff, but I have a great brother who not only shows me how to do it, he teaches me how to do it so that he doesn't have to do it a second time. So when he comes to work on my house, I'm always there with him so I can learn how to do it. And then he's an incredibly creative problem solver when it comes to fixing things that don't work. And so I watch, I learn, I listen, and then I practice myself. Those are some of the ways that you can use your creativity muscles to get stronger. Anybody else have any, does anybody here have a practice that they feel keeps them creatively thinking? Okay, well, the next time I see you here, I will want to know what that new practice is that you've put into effect. Yes, sir. Hang on, wait for the microphone.
Guitar is that for me. It's a good creative output.
I'm sorry?
Guitar.
Guitar, yes. Music.
Yep.
Yes. Music, absolutely. Any of the arts, of course. How many people here think you have to be an artist to be creative? Well, that's good. Lots of people think that that's what creativity is. You're an artist, which means you're either a musician, a dancer, a painter, a sculptor, whatever. But no, an engineer. Engineers are highly creative. Science used to be the realm of creativity. Albert Einstein always said if he couldn't figure something out, he would go walk. And I find for myself, when I'm walking in the forest without any distractions, I never bring my phone when I walk. I always that's when I get my major downloads of information. When I was working on the book, my whole chapter on anger came from sitting in front of a fire, night after night after night. The fire told me what I needed to know. Nature will speak to you and it will help you with your creativity if you're listening. So you have to make time for it. Get out into nature more. Being in nature right now is critically important because nature's screaming and would love for us to listen. And then when we're listening, it will help resolve not only our own problems, but help us to see how we can become better citizens of the planet. Yes.
I'm one that very much likes to reuse or repurpose things, and I just found a large picture on the workbench in the trash room. I took it, I put the cord on it to be able to hang it, but its colors are so vibrant, and it's sailboats in water with buildings, and it's in my bathroom. And adjacent to it is Imagine the Life You Can Have.
Nice, very nice. That's another thing too, repurposing stuff. Taking stuff that you have that you don't necessarily like. Can I paint it? Can I tile it? Can I carve it? What could I do to it? And that's a really fun, I can't tell you how many things I've had to throw away because they didn't turn out after doing that, but it was the practice of it, it was the fun part of it was doing it. And then the things that did turn out, I'd be like, whoa, that's awesome. And after a while you have to start giving those things away because there's not enough room in your house, but. Okay, last but not least, and then we're gonna go into offering. It wouldn't be my speech if I didn't say anything about emotion. So I'm going to talk about the importance of emotional maturity in creative thinking. And that was where the art thing came with the kids. But here is an immature emotional reaction to a problem. Blaming others for the problem, complaining and criticizing about why the problem happened, whose fault was it, refusing to participate in the solution because it wasn't my fault, I warned them this would happen, and then fear of suggesting solutions that seem unlikely or outrageous. That's all from an immature emotional place. From a mature emotional place, What you get is seeing the problem before it arises, watching it unfold, already having ideas and solutions before it gets too big, willing to help resolve the problem and not necessarily needing to take credit for it, bringing crazy out-of-the-box solutions to the table, and then demanding dialogue about why they will or will not work. The film industry was the best place ever to watch creativity in action, because moment by moment by moment on a feature film, there's so many things happening and so much riding on getting to the end of that day's goal, and everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so people know, from the lowest guy on the totem pole to the highest guy on the totem pole, and everybody in between, creative solutions will be rewarded. Somebody who starts out as the low guy on the totem pole, if they show an ongoing ability to solve problems quickly and creatively, they're going to get, well, this is in the old days, they're going to get raised up quickly, but I don't know that that's true anymore. So, okay, we're past time. Can you wait until we do the offering? Thank you. I don't want to miss the offering. Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes, you can do the offering. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I got a little out of alignment because I was late.
Well, thank you for that. So, Don, you asked a good question about the highs and the lows and how to balance that out. I'm going to remember that from today. All right, so as Kat was talking about the offering, Lake Heritage Spiritual Community is solely funded by your donations. We're a volunteer-led organization. This is our only source of income, so we appreciate any of the gifts that you can give us monetarily. You might consider partnering with us on a regular basis. On our website, there is a way to donate on a monthly basis through PayPal, if you'd like to do that as well. It takes a lot to keep this building open and keep bringing amazing speakers and events here as well. We're looking at the budget right now. Gas has gone up, insurance costs have gone up, and so we're still just trying to figure out ways to get the income coming. So thank you for whatever you can give.
Come gather round me, friends. I'll tell you about a minstrel band of children in their witches' hats, painting pictures with pipes of pain. A young boy and his sister played upon a whistle made of tin. They led me through the open fields. We danced and swirled like a on the wind. In my dizzy stupor, I was trying to forfeit all that I'd known. Listen to that French horn music, swirled its magic all its own. Out along the highway, we journeyed far for that mystic smile, chasing down identities. My God, we must have run 1,000,000 miles. Still we teach the children nothing but survival in this desert bare. They can teach us how to laugh, how to love and tie bright ribbons in our hair.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you to the helpers, and thank you to Gary and to Kat. And so if you'll all repeat after me as we bless these offerings. God's perfect love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Oh, okay. All right. So as is our tradition, we'll circle up. I think we have enough to circle around the middle, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, we might be able to. Okay. And then Miss Kat will lead us in a closing.
Okay, so we need to stretch out. Stretch out. Yeah. You guys stretch out. Go almost this far away from each other. Go almost this far away from each other. You want to be right like this to your neighbor. Keep going, keep going. Okay, I'm going to go right here. Nope, that's right. Now we're going to drop your hands, and you're going to put your left palm up and just leave it there. And put it somewhere where it's comfortable, so don't have it up too high. Put it down a little bit lower. There you go. Then you're going to take your right hand, and into the person on your right, you're going to scan over their hand until you can feel those two chakras connect. Woo! Can you feel that energy going around that circle? Okay, we're locked in. So the energy moves from the left to the right. The left side of your body is your receiving side. The right side of your body is your giving side. So as we receive, we pass that energy through our heart. We add some compassion. We send it out through our right palm to the person on our right. And then we just travel around the circle with that energy and feel that compassion coming from each heart, adding a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And we're creating this incredible field of compassion right here, right now. And the field of compassion is what fifth dimensional reality is. It's living in the field of compassion. So in the days to come, I'm going to encourage you to focus on the things that you love, focus on the things that bring you joy, and let everything else fall away. Now we're going to take a big inhale, and on the exhale, bring your hands together to form a ball. Keeping that energy connected, we're all still connected, and some of your balls will be the size of a basketball, some will be a grapefruit. Just find that ball of energy for you. It doesn't make any difference the size of it. That's a little ball of what we just created. And we're going to take an inhale, and on the exhale, you're going to throw that ball in the center of the circle, and you're going to direct it to somebody who you feel really, really needs this today, okay? So we'll take a big inhale and exhale. Excellent. Thank you. I have books for sale for $20 if anybody wants one. And the handouts are